Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're looking at the Ambassador class starship here. Um, During the 22 or 2320s, the Ambassador class was developed as a replacement for the aging Excelsior and Constellation class as Starfleet's frontline explorer type vessel. Several innovative new features were included in the new designs, most notably for the diplomatic and scientific missions. The USS Ambassador included high quality guest quarters and was equipped with elaborate conference facilities. Many of these areas were capable of maintaining a wide range of environments, a vital prerequisite for a vessel which would spend a great deal of its life dealing with non standard life forms. These facilities allowed her to host a much wider range of diplomatic functions than the more cramped Excelsior class, although it did lead to the class being dubbed space hotels in some quarters. The scientific facilities of the Ambassador class were equally well equipped. The ships combined or contained the most powerful space borne sensor arrays for their time, including 18 modular sensor pallets for mission specific equipment. 28 large dedicated laboratory facilities are included in the ship, along with facilities to convert three of the cargo bays to hold extra scientific equipment if necessary. This gave the Ambassador an estimated 450% increase in research capabilities over the Excelsior class vessel, which the primary purpose of a starship is exploratory and scientific. The ambassadors also have teeth. The class introduced phaser arrays to Starfleet in place of the ball turret phasers carried by previous designs. This measure greatly increased the ability of the Ambassador class to fire sustained bursts and greatly reduce the recharge and cooldown times. The use of the independent power systems for every group of 10 emitter segments in the array triples the survivability of the array compared to the ball turrets. While there are also benefits to the reaction time, greater control of thermal effects, field halos, and target impact. Overall, the phaser arrays of the Ambassador are over 65% more effective than ball turrets of similar power. The concept of burst firing photon torpedoes was another first. Although fitted with only two torpedo tubes, the Ambassador's ability to fire five torpedoes at a time from which or from each tube effectively gave her 10 tubes in place of two. After the first batch of ambassadors were delivered, Starfleet requested a series of modifications for the second batch. The USS Yamaguchi pioneered these changes. The engineering hull's aft end was widened to allow the shuttle bay to be enlarged, and the third shuttle bay was added to the underside of the engineering hull. This allowed the Yamagachi to handle over 30% more shuttlecraft than the standard Ambassador, making the ship more effective in colony establishment and support operations or emergency evacuation scenarios. The sitting of the Ambassador's saucer forward on the neck had led to some structural problems with early members of the class, although these had largely been fixed by modifications to the structural integrity field. The changes had led to considerable complications of the layout of the ship's connecting neck structure. Starfleet took the opportunity to shift the Yamagachi saucer section back by 6 meters, allowing them to eliminate uh, return to the original ISF modifications without further difficulties. The nacelles were also shifted back in order to keep them at minimum safe distance from the saucer. The buzzard collectors are a different model on the Yamagachi with a cap on the top and bottom of the inlet system which allows a less turbulent flow into the collectors, so increasing their efficiency by 12%. The deflector dish was modified to allow more sensor systems to be installed and provide additional protection at high warp speeds. Additional sensor systems were installed in the main sensor dome on the sensor section, necessitating a housing to be installed between the dome and the hull to hold the extra equipment. This allowed the sensor range and sensitivity to be increased by over 20% compared to the original Ambassador. The layout of lifeboats within the saucer section was also modified to allow increased evacuation speed in an emergency. Perhaps the most important change was the installation of a new model of impulse engine. The original Ambassador had always been considered to have low speed and agility at impulse, and the new engines promoted over 30% greater thrust, largely connected or correcting this problem. The only exterior change caused by the alteration is the engine exhaust is red rather than blue. The Yamagachi subtype uh, proved highly successful in service, and all existing vessels began to upgrade to the standard in 2350. The only ship which was not refitted was the USS Enterprise C, which was destroyed in 2346 while defending the Klingon outpost from attack by Romulans. The action secured a peace between the Federation Klingon Empire. The ship's destruction came some 6 months before it was due to return to space dock for the modifications. The USS Ambassador was launched in 2330 and commissioned in 2332. Series production continued at a slow but steady pace until 2357, when the 68th vessel was launched. Production was then suspended in favor of the new Galaxy class. So it's a nice write up that we have here from Daystrom as we look at everything here. Of course, this is going to be our prime timeline. Um, a large ship for its time, uh, really kind of paving the way to what was going to become the Galaxy class. So we do have a length of 564 meters, a beam of 338 meters, and a height of 132 meters, which gives us roughly 36 decks. We have a mass of 2,350,000 metric tons with a crew of 50 or 550 personnel on board. Um, let's see, we have 10 Type 9 phaser arrays, a total of 30,000 terawatts, two Type 1 burst fire photon torpedo tubes with 250 rounds. Our defense system, uh, total of, let's see, we have 2,025,000 terajoules, standard uranium, titanium, double hull plus 7 centimeters high density armor, standard level structural integrity field. If my mouth can only work tonight, that would be wonderful. Okay, so we do have a normal cruise of warp 6, a maximum crew of warp 8.8 with a maximum rating of 9.2 for 12 hours. Let's see. We do have our beam firepower and all that, but that's based off of what the Galaxy class. So our beam firepower is 600 compared to the Galaxy's 1000. Torpedo firepower is a 700 in comparison to the Galaxy. Weapon range and accuracy is 860. Our shield strength is 750. Our hull armor is 800. Our speed is 852. And combat maneuverability is 2,500. So our combat maneuverability is quite a bit better, but on the other ones, we are a little bit less as we progress up to that Galaxy class. Our overall strength index rated here from Daystrom is at a 723. Our diplomatic capability is a 6. Our expected whole life is 120. So I'm going to guess that's 120 years, which I think that's been on par with what we've been guessing all along. A minor refit is going to be done about every year. Standard is about every year, and a major is every 25 years. Now, the regretful thing is we got to see this in one episode and one episode only. Um, for a ship of the line like this, that was a major ship. I think we should have been able to see more of this. Although, looking at this, because we do have some yellows here, um, so that is Canon Source. So there must have been a couple of them, or at least listed in Deep Space Nine. Um, let's see, we have the Enterprise here. We have Season 4 Data's Day. We have DS9 Season 2 Tribunal. Let's see, the Yamagachi here is DS9 Emissary. Um, Voyager Season 2. The Next Generation Season 5. So we did have a model of this, so they did pull this out a couple times, but I only really remember it that one time. So I guess I'm really wrong on this one. Actively, we can say that we've seen this 9 times. Um, the ambassador, which was obviously the showrunner of the class that it was named after, um, we didn't get to see that one, but we did get to see 9 others. And it is nice to be able to see a ship like this, especially being the forerunner to the galaxy. But like I said, actively, I can only really remember seeing it the one time. Um, and we just kind of go from there. So let's look at the stats that we have from our D6. So looking at what we have here from our D6 Holocron, of course, this is going to be a cruiser. This is at capital scale. Again, the length is 526 meters or 26.33 meters. Has a beam of 325.20 or 26 meters and a height of 180.15 meters. The numbers look slightly off from what we had from Daystrom, but we'll kind of go with it. Uh, D6 Holocron has got it listed as a ship mass of 3,825,000 metric tons, which I do believe is, again, different from what we had on Daystrom. So this is a size 7 starship. Let's see, we do have an autopilot of 3D plus 1. Now this has also got it listed as a crew of 900. So this is a slightly larger ship, I want to say. Um, or we're just packing people in a little bit more. Let's see, 564 for our length. 56. No, it's Daystrom's got it a little bit longer, but yeah, I don't. But the height is a Daystrom's got it a little bit longer, but a little shorter than what we have listed here. So it's just the way it is here. Um, just kind of doing a run through. You're listening as a crew of 900 with 200 passengers. Cargo capacity is 300,000 metric tons and enough consumables for 3 years. Now, on Daystrom, we have it listed as a warp 5 for our standard. Here, or for our standard warp. Here we have it listed as a warp 5, then a 9, and then a 9.2 for 6 hours. So there's that difference, and I've talked about this many times before. Whenever we're taking it from one source to another, um, D6 Holocron was always grabbing from Memory Alpha and Memory Beta, and that's what they had decided on compared to what um, Daystrom had. Um, Honestly, I'm sure if I pulled up my Decipher book and I pulled that out, which I'm not going to worry about, I might have something different there too. So we always have to kind of figure out where we want to have these, and that always makes things a little kind of fluid, or you have to be a little fluid with this. So it does make it a little difficult to have like some solid set in stone numbers, especially on a ship that we didn't get to see a lot of. So just keeping that in mind. Um, I don't know really how to say it any better than that, I guess. All right. So of course we're going to have our nav computer has a maneuverability of 0D plus 2. We have a space speed of 9, a hull of 3D plus 2, and a shields of 2D. For our sensor package, we have a passive scan out to 4 kilometers with a 1D plus 1 bonus, an active scan going out to 12 kilometers with a 1D plus 2 bonus, an active search at 15 kilometers with with a 2D plus 1 bonus, and a focus out to 500 meters at a 3D bonus. Not bad in all regards. Now, we have listed of 8 phaser arrays. Um, Daystrom was saying, I believe it was 10. Um, 10 type 9. So, again, we have another discrepancy here to kind of deal with. However, we want to work this out. Let's see. So, we have a fire arc, a 360 dorsal, and a 360 ventral, 5 dorsal, and 3 ventral. Let's see. Fire control is a 0D plus 2. We have a fire rate of 1 with damage of 3D. So that means that we have 8 different shot, or depending on where we are. I mean, it's if you're shooting at something on your dorsal arc, yeah, you can have 5 shots. If it's on your ventral, so it's underneath you, you're going to be able to shoot 3 different times um, at 3D damage. But you only get one per weapon array, so just kind of keep it at that. Let's see. We do have our 2 photon torpedo launchers, one forward, one aft. These are self-guiding. We do have fire control of 0D plus 2. They're listing it as 200 rounds of Type 2 photon torpedo or torpedoes here, with a spread of 8, not 5, and a damage of 4D. Now, if you remember when I was kind of going through the weapon rebalancing, really kind of adding more damage to our torpedoes, this is the time frame where I'm kind of considering it a little bit closer to the movies, not quite to the next generation. When the Galaxy class comes in, that's where I'll kind of consider that the next generation. Um, so I would say that this would be 70 damage if I was going to put this into my Star Wars universe. Okay, um, for when I start trying to mash everything together. All right, so we do have 2 class gamma tractor beams, one forward and one aft. We have a fire control of 1D plus 1, rate of fire is 1, and strength is 3D plus 2. We also have a class alpha tractor beam for the shuttle bay. It's a 0D plus 2, uh, strength of 3D to try and bring our shuttlecraft in. Now, quarters, we have 800 basic quarters, 150 expanded quarters, 60 luxury quarters, 15 unusual quarters, and 40 decks. Now, again, when we look at our Daystrom has it listed as 36 decks. But we're also seeing it's also a little taller, so that does make a lot of sense. Now, they're saying that this was commissioned in 2322, where I believe Daystrom's got it listed here as 2332 is when it was actually commissioned, but it was built in 2330. Now, on Daystrom, it's all in white, so that is their own speculation at it. Uh, and a lot of the write up really is their speculation. So we have to take this at face value here and, with that little grain of salt to say, you know, people are going to have their discussions back and forth. How do you want to do it? And I agree, those discussions should be there. So we have transporters, uh, personnel transporters. Let's see, in their 6-person capacity. We have 4 emergency transporters, which have a 20-person capacity, and 4 cargo transporters, which have a 400 kilogram capacity. Now, our shuttle complement, we do have a mix of 10 to 15 shuttlecraft and or shuttle pods, depending on how they're all kind of fixed up here. We do have about 60 probes, and there is a captain's yacht on board the ship. Now, this is being listed as the Ambassador class starship was the type of heavy cruiser in service with Starfleet during at least the mid to late 24th century, and that is the Next Generation Conspiracy. Let's see, we get also the ships of the Ambassador class were utilized in 24th century during the Klingon Civil War and fought against the Borg and Dominion. We have Redemption 2 and Emissary, as well as You Are Quarterly Invited, or Cordially Invited, I should say. Okay, they're going to go on a little bit here. Main bridge, primary operational control of the Ambassador class starship was provided by the main bridge located on top of the primary hull. The bridge directly supervised all primary mission operations and coordinated all department activities. In 2344, the central area of the bridge provided seating for the captain only. Directly for and to the right of the captain was the ops section or station, with the helm station at the left. Consoles were similar to that of the bridges of the Excelsior and Galaxy class starships. At the very front of the bridge was a large view screen. Um, the original design incorporated a flat panel. Lacars based control panels used the interface introduced in the late 2300s. Next generation, yesterday's Enterprise, by the 2360s, the Ambassador class bridge was upgraded to include the standard Lacars interface and consoles typically found on board modern vessels of that era. Okay, so we get to see as the progression goes. It is an interesting ship. I think it is a ship that we should have seen a little bit more. Uh, they really used a lot of the Excelsior class, and I think instead of using the Excelsior class, I think we should have seen a little bit more of this. If they're saying that there was 60 of them built, I think we should have run into a few more than what we did. But there again, if the Excelsior was produced in high numbers, I guess it does make sense. You probably would have seen a few more of those, and also to say that in the Next Generation, even in the movies, we still see the old Oberth being thrown around a little here and a little there for um, kind of recovery missions and stuff like that. You know, the Oberth being an old workhorse for scientific research, especially for civilian missions and stuff like that, it does make sense. It's an ungainly kind of looking ship, and I'll give it that, but it is a workhorse and it did perform its duties pretty well. It wasn't a frontline combat vessel in any regards, but for being just a standard science vessel, just to kind of throw out there when you needed it, it did perform fairly well. So, but having a ship like this that was the cutting edge and the design that we had before we got to our Galaxy class, um, it would have been nice to see it a little bit more. I really say that with a lot of love and that for the ship. Although I will always say this, you know, Star Trek has that iconic view in the ships. and they kept that with this design. To me, though, I think if we would have gotten rid of that neck being what it was, I think that would help a little bit, but that would definitely change the whole dynamic look of the ship. Um, and it, just like when we look at other franchises, they always have that one ship that everybody looks at and says, "Yep, that's that franchise." This look of a ship being a design that had been adopted early on for the Federation and something that they had tried to continue on. They did continue that very well in all of their model series for everything that they had done, trying to keep that same design flow. And I do give them a lot of credit for that. So, with that, thank you so very much for stopping by. It's always great having you here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you in the next video.